أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Surah 74, Al-Muddathir. Title: The word Al-Muddathir features in the opening verse of the surah and serves as its title. Period of revelation. Verses 1 to 7 of this surah were sent down in the earliest Meccan phase. Some reports on the authority of Jabir ibn Abdullah cited by Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, and Ahmad even suggest that these are the earliest verses of the Quran revealed to the Prophet, peace be upon him. However, the consensus view of the Muslim community is that verses 1 to 5 of Surah Al-Alaq are the earliest revelation of the Quran sent down to the Prophet, peace be upon him. Authentic reports state that after the revelation of this passage from Surah Al-Alaq, no further revelation was received until these verses from Surah Al-Muddathir were sent down to the Prophet, peace be upon him. It is related by Imam Tabari that Imam Zuhri said, "For a long time no revelation was sent down to the Prophet, peace be upon him. During this period, he was so grief-stricken that at times he would climb up to the hilltops, thinking of letting himself fall. However, on such occasions, Gabriel appeared before him, reassuring him that he was God's messenger, which put his mind at rest, and he managed to regain his composure." Speaking about this break in the revelation, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "One day as I was walking, I suddenly heard a voice from the heavens. As I raised my head, I saw the same angel who had visited me in the cave of Hira, sitting on a chair that hung between the heavens and the earth. This terrified me, and on reaching home, I asked that I be cloaked. My family members put me on a bed and cloaked me. It was then that God revealed to me the opening verses of Surah Al-Muddathir. Thereafter I received revelation regularly." Verses 8 to 56 of this surah were sent down on the occasion of the first Hajj season after Islam was publicly preached in Mecca. Ibn Hisham has described at length the circumstantial setting of these verses, and relevant passages from him are quoted below. Subject matter and themes. As already indicated, the following verses were first to be revealed to the Prophet, peace be upon him. "Recite in the name of your Lord, who created man from a clot of congealed blood. Recite, and your Lord is most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man what he did not know." Al-Alaq 96, 1-5. It was the first experience that the Prophet, peace be upon him, had of receiving divine revelation. It neither spelled out his mission nor his future course of action clearly. He had only been given a brief introduction and was left to his own devices for some time. This was to prepare him mentally to receive further revelations in the future and to shoulder his office of messengership. It was meant also as a respite from the tremendous burden placed on him. When revelation resumed after this break, Al-Muddathir 74, 1-7 was sent down to him. For the first time, he was now commanded to arise and warn mankind against following a wrong path, and to extol God's glory in the world, which at the time resounded with the glorification of false gods. In keeping with his mission, he was directed and obliged to lead an exemplary life, and to guide sincerely his fellow human beings without any selfish motive. He was also exhorted to bear with all the hardships he would have to endure in carrying out this mission. When the Prophet, peace be upon him, started to preach Islam in response to the divine command and to recite the Quranic surahs revealed to him in quick succession, it caused a storm in Mecca. He was faced with opposition on a massive scale. After a few months, the Hajj season was to begin. This caused consternation among the Meccan unbelievers, for they feared that if the Prophet, peace be upon him, preached Islam among the pilgrims arriving in Mecca from all parts of Arabia, and recited to them highly effective and inimitable passages from the Quran, then his mission would spread far and wide in no time. Moreover, his audience would welcome his message as well. So the Meccan chiefs consulted together, resolving that propaganda against the Prophet, peace be upon him, would be spread among the pilgrims soon after their arrival in Mecca. Once they decided to do so, Walid ibn al-Mughira pointed out that if they leveled various charges against the Prophet, peace be upon him, they would lose their credibility. Therefore, they should agree how to discredit him. Some proposed that he be branded a soothsayer, but Walid rejected this proposal, saying that the Quran had nothing in common with the ramblings of soothsayers. Others suggested that he be dubbed a madman. Once again, Walid disagreed, asserting that a madman behaves in a quite different way. No pilgrim would buy that story, for the Quran could not be the product of a madman's mind. Others advised that he be labeled a poet. Walid stressed that being familiar with poets, he knew that the Quran did not fall into any category of poetry. Another suggestion was that he be discredited as a magician. Walid refuted this as well, affirming that the label of a magician could not apply to the Prophet, peace be upon him, as he and others were aware of the tricks and stratagems of magicians. He further remarked, "All of these charges will not be accepted by the pilgrims. By the Lord, that word is immensely captivating, with deep roots and a rewarding message." Abu Jahl then asked Walid for an alternative. He asked for some time to devise a strategy. After much reflection, he told them that the charge of being a magician was the most credible one which could be hurled against the Prophet, peace be upon him. They should alert the pilgrims that the message presented by him was causing dissension within families, as parents and their children parted company after listening to his word. Walid's plan was endorsed by everyone. As part of this organized strategy, delegations of the Quraysh called on the pilgrims and warned them against the Prophet, peace be upon him. They portrayed him as a consummate magician who caused divisions within families. However, it proved to be counterproductive, for Quraysh themselves became the means to spread the name and mission of the Prophet, peace be upon him, on a wide scale. That Walid had drawn up his strategy at Abu Jahl's behest is reported by Ikramah, as cited by Tabari in his Tafsir, volume 23, page 429. The second section of this surah criticizes the above incident, and the outline of part of the surah runs as follows. Verses 8 to 10 warn those opposing the truth that they will face horrible consequences because of their rejection. Without naming Walid ibn Mughira, verses 11 to 26 spell out the numerous divine bounties bestowed on him, despite his audacity in opposing the truth so blatantly. Attention is also drawn to the conflict in his own mind. On the one hand, he is persuaded of the truth of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the Quran, and on the other, he does not want to lose his privileged position in Meccan society. The latter consideration prevents him from embracing faith. After struggling with his own conscience, he finally resolves to discredit the Prophet, peace be upon him, by declaring him to be a magician with a view to dissuade people from accepting his message. Despite the exposure of his falsehood, he has the temerity to expect more divine blessings, because of which he has made himself fully deserving of the hellfire. Verses 27 to 48 relate the horrors of hell and specify what type of people will be consigned to it. Verses 49 to 53 diagnose the root cause of the unbelievers' malaise. As they have no fear regarding the hereafter and look upon this life as an end in itself, they avoid the Quran as frightened wild asses do in fleeing from a lion. Even if all of their conditions are met, they will still be disinclined towards faith and the hereafter. It is finally declared that God does not stand in need of anyone's faith, and therefore He will not meet anyone's preconditions. The Quran stands out as divine guidance for everyone who is free to accept it or reject it. God deserves to be feared, and it befits His glory to pardon those who are pious and fear God, even if they had previously indulged in sin.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate.
Ya ayyuhal muddathir.
O you enveloped in your cloak.
1. A study of the background of the revelation of these verses given in the introduction above can help one understand why the Prophet, peace be upon him, on this occasion has been addressed with Ya Al-Muddathir instead of Ya Al-Rasulu, O Messenger, or Ya Al-Nabiyyu, O Prophet, as the Prophet, peace be upon him, had been terrified when he had suddenly seen the angel Gabriel, sitting on a throne between heaven and earth, and had returned hastily home and asked the people of the house to cover him up. So Allah addressed him with Ya Al-Muddathir. From this fine way of address the meaning which automatically follows is, O my dear servant, why have you lain down thus enwrapped? You have been put under the burden of a great mission. You must now arise from your solitude to perform this mission with resolution and courage.
O you enveloped in your cloak! The first 7 verses of this surah are those in which the Prophet, peace be upon him, was directed for the first time ever to preach Islam's message to others. The very first revelation of the Quran consisted of the verses of Surah 96, Surah Al-Alaq. Verses 1 to 7 of this surah are the first verses to be revealed after the revelation of that surah.
قُمْ فَأَنذِرْ.
Arise and warn.
2. A command of this very nature had been given to the Prophet Noah, peace be upon him, while appointing him to the office of prophethood. Warn the people of your nation before they are overtaken by a painful torment. Surah Nuh, Ayat 1, the verse means, O you who lays enwrapped, stand up and arouse the people who live in heedlessness around you. Warn them of the fate which would certainly overtake them if they remained involved in the same heedlessness. Warn them that they are not living in a lawless kingdom where they are free to conduct themselves as they like and where they can do wherever they please without any fear or being called to account for it.
وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ.
And magnify the glory of your Lord.
3. This is the primary duty of a prophet, peace be upon him, which he has to perform in this world. His foremost duty is to refute the greatness of all those whom the ignorant people might be holding as great, and publicly proclaim that the greatness in this universe belongs to none but Allah alone. For this very reason the phrase Allahu Akbar has been held as of supreme importance in Islam. The adhan, call to prayer, begins with the proclamation of Allahu Akbar. The Muslim enters the prayer itself with Allahu Akbar and repeats Allahu Akbar every time he sits or stands. He also pronounces Bismillahi Allahu Akbar when slaughtering an animal. The slogan of Allahu Akbar has become a most distinctive and prominent emblem of Muslims throughout the world today, for the Prophet, peace be upon him, of this Ummah himself had embarked on his mission with the magnification and glorification of Almighty Allah. Here, there is another fine point, which must be understood well. As we have learned from the background of the revelation of these verses, this was the first occasion when the Prophet, peace be upon him, had been commanded to arise for performing the duties of the great mission of prophethood, and it was obvious that the city and society in which he was commanded to perform this mission was the center of polytheism. Not only were the people around him polytheistic like the common Arabs, but, more than that, the city of Mecca had become the most sacred place of pilgrimage for the polytheistic Arabs, and the Quraysh were its attendants. Arising of a person in such a place all by himself and proclaiming the oneness of God in the face of polytheism was full of risks. That is why the exhortation to proclaim the greatness of your Lord just after arise and warn contains this meaning. Also, do not at all mind the terrifying and dreadful forces that seem to be obstructing and impeding your work, and proclaim publicly that your Lord is the greatest of all those who can hinder and resist you from giving your message. This is indeed the greatest encouragement for a person who embarks on a divine mission. The one who has Allah's greatness and majesty deeply embedded in his heart will feel no hesitation at all in facing and fighting the entire world by himself for the sake of Allah.
وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ.
And purify your robes.
وَالرُّجْزَ فَاهْجُرْ.
And shun uncleanliness.
4. These are very comprehensive words, which are full of meaning. They mean this: keep your garments free from every filth and impurity, for the purity of the body and garments, and the purity of the spirit are interlinked and interdependent. A pure spirit and an impure body with impure garments cannot live together. The society in which the Prophet, peace be upon him, had arisen with the invitation to Islam was not only steeped in the evils of unbelief and immorality, but was also devoid of even the most elementary concepts of purity and cleanliness, and the Prophets, peace be upon him, task was to teach its members cleanliness in every way of life. Therefore he was instructed to establish and present a high standard of purity in his external life as well. Thus, it is the result of the same instruction that the Prophet, peace be upon him, gave mankind such detailed teaching about the cleanliness of the body and garments as is not possessed even by the most civilized nations of today, not to speak of the Arabs of the pre-Islamic days of ignorance, so much so that in most of the languages of the world there is no word synonymous with taharat. On the contrary, in Islam every book of the hadith and fiqh begins with injunctions and instructions on taharat, purity, which distinguishes between purity and impurity and gives minute details about the methods and means of obtaining purity. The second meaning of these words is, keep your garments neat and clean. The criterion of religiosity given to the world by the monastic concepts was that a man was holy to the extent he was unclean. If a person happened to put on neat clothes, he was looked upon as a worldly man, whereas the fact is that human nature abhors filth and uncleanness, and even a person of ordinary fine taste loves to be associated only with a neat and clean person. On this very basis, for the one calling the people to Allah it was made imperative that externally he should also look so neat and clean that the people should regard him with esteem and his personality should not be stained in any way so as to repel others. The third meaning of this divine command is, keep your garments free from moral evils. Your dress should be neat and clean, but it should bear no tinge of vanity and pride, display and exhibition, pomp and show. The dress is the first thing that introduces the personality of a person to others. The kind of dress a person wears makes the people judge at first sight what kind of a man he is. The dresses of the rulers and princes, the dresses of the religious functionaries, the dresses of the vain and conceited people, the dresses of the mean and shallow people, the dresses of the evil-natured and characterless people, all represent the tastes and tempers of those who wear them. The temper of the one calling to Allah is naturally different from all such people. Therefore, his dress should also necessarily be different from all of them. He should wear such a dress as should make everyone else feel that he is a noble and refined person, who is not involved in any evil of the self. Its fourth meaning is, keep away from moral evils. Ibn Abbas, Ibrahim Nakhai, Shabi Atta, Mujahid, Qatada, Sa'id bin Jubair, Hassan Basri and other major commentators have given this very meaning to this verse. Keep yourself morally pure and avoid all that is blameworthy. Also in Arabic usage when it is said, so and so is clean in his garments, it implies that he is morally good and pure. On the contrary, when it is said, he is filthy in his garments, it means that he is dishonest and fraudulent in his dealings. He is unreliable.
And shun uncleanliness.
5. Uncleanliness implies every kind of filth, whether of belief and thought, of morals and deeds, of the body, dress or mode of life. The verse means, keep yourself free from the filth of evils which are prevalent in society around you. No one should ever impute to you the blame that your own life itself is stained in some degree with the evils that you tell others to avoid.
And bestow not favor in order to seek from others a greater return.
6. The words wala tam and tastakthir in the original are so vast in meaning that no one sentence can convey their full sense in translation. Their one meaning is, whomever you favor, you should favor him without any selfish motive. Your bestowal of an endowment and donation, your generosity and good treatment should be only for the sake of Allah. There should be no trace in it of the desire that you should receive any worldly gains in return for the favor done. In other words, do good to others for the sake of Allah, not for seeking any benefits. The second meaning is, although the mission of prophethood that you are performing is a great favor in itself, for the people are obtaining true guidance because of it, do not remind the people of this favor, nor try to obtain any personal benefits from it. The third meaning is, although you are performing a great service, you should never gloat over it, nor should ever have the idea that by performing your prophetic duties, at the risk of life, you are doing any favor to your Lord.
And persevere for your Lord's sake.
7. That is, the task that is being entrusted to you is full of hazards. You will meet with great hardships and difficulties and troubles on this way. Even your own people will turn hostile against you and the whole of Arabia will become your enemy. Yet you should endure with patience, for the sake of your Lord, whatever you may have to face in this way, and carry out all your duties firmly and resolutely. Fear, greed, friendship, enmity, love, all these will hinder your way, but you should stand your ground firmly and steadfastly. These were the very preliminary instructions which Allah gave His Messenger, peace be upon him, at the time when He commanded him to arise and start the work of prophethood. If a person ponders over these brief sentences and their meaning, his heart will testify that no better instructions could be given to a prophet at the commencement of his prophetic mission. In these he was told what he was required to do, what kind of life, morals and dealings he should adopt, and taught with what intention, mentality and mode of thought he should go about his mission, and also forewarned what kind of conditions he would meet with in the performance of his mission, and how he would have to face and overcome them. Today the people who, blinded by their prejudices, say that these words were, God forbid, uttered by the Prophet, peace be upon him, during epileptic fits, should study these sentences carefully and judge for themselves whether these are the product of any epileptic fits, or the instructions of a God, which He gave to His servant, while appointing him to the mission of apostleship.